Hi, ho, hello, and welcome back to the Utajua Hujui podcast. Thank you so much for joining me on in my YouTube channel. I haven't quite figured out the English, but it's okay. We're gonna get there. So in this episode, we're gonna be talking about Tom Mboya. There's a lot more banter than usual, but I really hope you enjoy it. Yeah, thank you so much. Bye. Hi, and welcome back to the Utajua Hujui podcast. Now, a quick word before we get in. Your girl Aileen has a little bit of a potty mouth, which means she does not mind her language and she speaks the fluent French. Which is all to say that I understand that some people are a little bit uncomfortable with this language, so here's just a warning for you. If, however, you are not uncomfortable and you would like to learn about the world around you and capitalism and colonialism and just like all this fun shit with a dazzling, brilliant, and funny host, if I do say so myself, keep listening.
We have always stated that our independence cannot be complete if in fact there is any part of the world where the black man is not accorded his rightful position in society.
Hi, ho, hello, and welcome back
to the Uta Hujui, I got it wrong, Uta Hujui podcast, brought to you by
Fun Times and Sad Times.
Was there a sad time?
I mean, I wasn't really prepared for you to throw me the mic like that, so...
we have to work on our chemistry.
Okay,
really
it's not chemistry,
chemistry,
it's just improv. I'm not really good at improv.
That gets better with chemistry.
Oh, okay, fine. Introduce yourself for the people that don't know who you are.
Oh, hello and hi, and my name is Kariithi Gary, Utajua Hujui's favorite guest, the person that people on TikTok like to hate on, and by the way, just for my own sake, for my own rant, guys, stop hating on me about my Daima Mimi Mkenya decision. That song, yes, the people of Independent fought for a beautiful song, which is a prayer. Yes, I understand. However, I just said Daima Mimi Mkenya gets me more in the fields. Have you ever listened to that song while watching like Eliud Kipchoge break his breaking 2 hour? Just put off the volume and just put that song on. You'll cry. I swear to you, you'll cry. But anyways, my name is Kariithi Gary. Proud to be here. Happy and energetic.
I mean, I did want to ask if you had something you wanted to get off your chest. I'm glad you were able to get this thing off your chest.
Just attacking your fans. Letting them know that you're good fans, but man, get off my back.
Okay, I guess my question, or rather what I wanted to get off my chest, was this fact that I heard that I think you will either find disgusting or interesting, but definitely both. Are you ready?
So I would find both. Because I'll either find this or that, but both.
Yes. Ready?
You are an English teacher.
Sure. Sure.
I'm ready.
Okay.
Ready.
I was listening to a podcast, and the guy on the podcast said that Emperor Napoleon's wife Josephine used to hate him until the first time they had sex.
So he was a good lay.
I think so. He dicked down good.
I don't know if that is good for women. Honestly,
okay.
It's proving a bit of a point.
No. Okay, listen.
That, bro, you can hate me.
But if that's the case, then he must have been a god because, like.
No.
I don't want to divulge like too much about like my past or anything, but we've all been in a situation where like you have sex with somebody you don't like their personality is trash, but fuck it, you just want to fuck it.
Sure.
But that doesn't change their opinion. It doesn't change your opinion of them. They're still trash.
Clearly, they didn't do a good job.
Oh my god.
As according to Napoleon, if they did a good job, maybe you'd be married right now, Aileen.
I mean, okay, wow. To somebody with a trash personality, I don't think so.
Miss Napoleon did it.
Yeah, but she also cheated on him constantly.
Oh my god, Napoleon was cheated on.
Constantly.
Like the king of
he was pussy whipped.
General. Oh my goodness.
He was pussy whipped is the best way to put it.
I don't even know what that means, but I'll go with that. I'm a holy person. Just saying. I don't know what you guys talk about.
See, did Jesus not find himself among the sinners? Are you saying
still
that-
was above the sinners.
Yeah, but he's still what's it called? Engaged.
Yeah, I interact with you
talk to
people.
them,
I listen to you people.
We have what is it? As we were all taught in church, for we have all sinned and fallen short of the glory of God.
100%. However, the degrees of sin just a little different. Like
to God it's all the same.
Yeah, you guys just sin too much.
To God it's all
I'm
the same.
always trying to change. But speaking of that,
Yes.
I wanted to recommend to you a show.
Yes.
And I wanted to recommend to the people a show.
Yes.
It's actually on my TV right now. It's called The Gold Mafia. Now, many Kenyans have already watched it. It's got like more than 1 million views. But it
6 days, damn.
There are 3 episodes that are out. The next episode will be out by the time this podcast is out. And it just goes into money washing. And the part of it that made me a bit like sad or pissed a little bit, because I do abide by faith, was that it talks about 2 characters. One every Kenyan knows. We call him Brother Paul. Kamlesh Patni. He changed when he, after Goldenberg scandal, it shows the pictures of when he went into the courts pretending he was sick and all those things. So Kamlesh Patni, he changed and he became Brother Paul. But then there's this other character in Zimbabwe who is like the top diplomat.
Okay.
And his name, kid you not, he calls himself Prophet Angel.
Prophet Angel.
Prophet Angel. His real name is Angel, so it's not bad. But Prophet Angel, yeah? So Mr. Prophet Angel and his English son-in-law or something like that,
English
like they
is in
have
white?
a church. He's white. So Prophet Angel is black. His son-in-law, or his second in command, is very white. And they have a church service where you know the thing of people fainting and all that, and they do all those things.
This is just getting worse.
So, so all that. So you see, okay, Prophet Angel, he's a man of God, great. He's a man of real virtue, great.
Amazing.
And then you watch him being torn down for basically offering to help the Zimbabwe, some investigators who turned themselves as Chinese investors in dirty money.
Yeah.
He literally offered them that they can just put 1 billion in his plane and he can take it and he will not be checked. Like, he also showed how dirty he is.
He was flexing.
So you're like, wow. So that Gold Mafia, interesting podcast about how gold is used in the money laundering world.
Okay, I guess I will put a link in the description of this episode
Yes,
for
it's on
everyone
YouTube.
to check it out.
Just watch all 3 episodes or all 4 episodes. And if you remember Kamlesh Patni, if you remember Brother Paul, I remember in 2007 he had a political party.
No
It
way.
was called Kenda.
Seriously.
Yeah, it was called
This
Kenda.
man, after orchestrating one of the biggest thefts in the country, then had the audacity.
But he wasn't the stealer, he was the facilitator.
He's still guilty.
Sort of, kind of.
In criminal law, he's still guilty.
All he did is facilitate. He tells you, this is how you can make money from gold. Give me the sole right. Give me the sole right to export gold from Kenya. And because Moi didn't have money coming in from because of structural adjustment, sure, I need dollars. Patni gives him dollars. He gets the gold. Perfect.
Okay, so my question to you is this.
Yes.
And I want you to be honest. Because everything you're talking about here with the gold mafia and Goldenberg or Goldberg?
It was Goldenberg.
Goldenberg.
Yeah. Goldberg is a wrestler.
Really? Okay. So with gold mafia and Goldenberg, it's very clear corruption is rampant.
Oh, yes.
Naturally, we all think corruption is a bad thing that we want to get rid of. But are you mad because it's stealing wealth of everyone? Or are you mad because you didn't get to eat first?
First question you have to ask is, am I mad?
Are you mad?
Not really. But
What?
if I was mad, it would be more mad of the stealing for everyone thing.
Okay, why aren't you mad?
Because I told you, I'm a realist. Unfortunately, this is the way of the world. I believe, and as I'm being told now, being put down a peg by commenters and all those people, I believe that the world is a big cabal. The world is a big cabal of gangsters. And so what you have is front door, back door politics. So this guy, they met him, I think, when they were in a convention somewhere in the West.
Okay.
basically, you have the front door politician, who would be President Uhuru, President Ruto, who they can never be seen to be taking bribes,
Yes.
doing all these things.
Yes.
But they always have a gangster who's somewhere in the command, who can make decisions to the benefit of that person without spoiling the name of that person.
So you have for Ruto, it's Gashags, allegedly.
It can't
Maybe.
be Gashags. It's never gonna be Gashags. Gashags is kept at an arm's length. It's probably like Farouk Kibet.
Okay, and then
Or someone else, or someone a bit smarter, someone who looks clever, looks very sharp, but goes to have those diplomatic meetings and have the dark ones that the president can't be seen to hold.
Yeah, it's not Gachagua. He's too loud.
No, it's definitely not Gachagua.
Then for Uhuru, it was who? I
don't
like
know.
it would have been Ruto, but
No, I think it would be someone like Uhuru trusted, like he selected. A keen
Matish.
ambassador. Matish is too nice. Too nice.
Matish isn't that. I mean, I feel like a lot of people who got tear gassed would beg to differ that Matish is too
Like
nice.
he was rough, but I think Matish always appeared to everyone like he has a moral compass. And so even when he's doing his bad things, it looks like he's doing it with morality, if you get what I mean. Like he's tear gassing you, but he's tear gassing you because you're a nuisance. He's not tear gassing you because like he really wants to tear gas you. Like you know, there are those people, those politicians who do things like Magufuli used to as well.
Yeah.
But they believe they're doing the right thing.
Don't all of them believe they do?
No,
the
some are
right
just
thing?
gangsters, and they know exactly what they are. They're gangsters. They're there to make money.
Okay.
But this is all theory. But I believe even the US has these people.
Oh no, the US definitely has these people.
Yes.
Yeah, like we
Like,
all watch Scandal, The West Wing, House of Cards.
A book everyone should read is The New Confessions of an Economic Hitman by I think he's John Perkins.
Talked about what the CIA, the Americans, like all these NGOs did in
Talks
Southeast
about
Asia.
Southeast Asia was bad.
Yeah.
South America and North America, like Panama, that area.
Yeah,
worse.
they fucked it because they wanted to
Worse.
and they needed it.
And you hear about companies like the American Fruit Company. I didn't know how big of a deal that company is.
You didn't know like the what's it called, the American Fruit Company complained when the president of Guatemala in like the 50s wanted to take the land that they themselves had said is unproductive and give it to the peasant class. And these American companies were like, socialism, communism, it's a threat to the country, we need to protect our interests. And then they asked Uncle Sam to come in and invade Guatemala.
And this is the problem with capitalism.
It happens
This is
again
why I'm
in Chile.
attacking everyone who's against the whole idea of exploring other ideas. Think about how bad the world has been made because of the capitalist system. Think about these gangsters that we see all the time, where now nobody trusts anybody.
Yes.
Like, and I've seen it in you especially. You're more of a Gen Z than I am.
I know. I have such peak Gen Z energy and I am not a Gen Z.
She does not trust any
You
celebrity
haven't
or
given me
leader
a reason to trust you
at all. She has no belief in heroes. The only
Look.
hero she has is Queen Bee,
Oh no. Even
and she's accepted her for her flaws.
it's actually now it's Rihanna. Rihanna is a goddess to me. All praise Fenty. All praise her.
Oh my goodness.
Rihanna is amazing, and it's Rihanna the brand, not the person.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. No, but like you're right. Everything is a bit of a shit show, and
We don't trust nobody.
okay. Let me say, the last time I trusted someone, turned out he was obviously I'm talking about Bill Cosby.
Oh man.
Or even R. Kelly, like these institutions that you grew up with that characterized your childhood. Like I grew up dancing to R. Kelly. He was my first R&B non-Christian musician that I listened to. Him and Beyonce.
He was also the first musician I listened to, but
And
I was
then-
not listening to the R&B hip hop part. I was listening to I Believe I Can Fly. The world's greatest. You saved me.
And then on the other hand, you have like Bill Cosby with the Cosby Show and all the children's programming that he was doing, which
Yeah.
I grew up on. And then to turn around and find out that both of these men are sexual predators.
They did
is
terrible
just...
things. But now imagine now in the international system, people thought, like before Kenyans got a clue, many people thought like what the US and the UK did in the Middle East was justified at first, or they were actually standing on moral ground.
Yes, so
Well-
it's the moral ground. Like they were too pissed off.
Yeah.
It felt righteous.
And what were they actually doing?
It was all money.
It's all about money.
It's all about the money.
It's
money,
all
money.
about the money.
But and revenge. Baby Bush wanted revenge or wanted to go back
For his
'cause-
daddy.
Yeah, for Daddy Bush.
For Daddy Bush. And then they had the Cheney guy at the back who was just really
Oh,
ready for some
Sorry.
money.
Speaking of Cheney and like evil people in general.
I don't say he's evil, but anyways.
Oh my God, Cheney.
No one is evil.
We're going to discuss this at the end. Do you know that Henry Kissinger is still alive?
Yeah.
I'm shocked. I am shocked. He should be dead by now.
But think of his personality. It makes sense that he's alive.
How does it make sense he's alive? He's outlived the Queen.
For a person who was made to do the things he did, I think it requires a type of personality that just doesn't get stressed.
To die?
It just doesn't get stressed. So his body just, like he just dealt with things.
Well, if he makes it, because we're recording this in April, his birthday is I think sometime in May.
He's turning what, 100?
100. Knock on wood, he'll make it. Because the last time we prematurely celebrated somebody's 100th birthday, it was Betty White or Smith.
It was Betty White.
Betty
yes.
White.
And then she was amazing. Then she died like, was it 3 days or the day before or a week before? It was horrific.
It was so
Even though
bad.
she was just some random white person.
But she just seemed like fun.
People mourned her more than the Queen, which I understand.
I mean, Queen Elizabeth never made me laugh.
What do you remember Betty White from?
Hot in Cleveland. I feel like I've heard her voice in a number of things and other movies, but definitely Golden Girls. Come on, Golden Girls.
That's what shocked me because like Golden Girls was a show in the 80s about old women
living together.
Old women.
Yeah, and it worked.
Now, 40 years later is when this lady is dying.
Yeah.
So already people thought she was in her 60s and 70s in the 1980s.
And she
was in her,
said,
and she's just fine. Another person who I think that is when I will cry. I will cry when she dies.
Who?
Maggie Smith.
Oh my God, yes.
Now, for those of you who know her, she's known as Professor McGonagall. And to the rest of us who
also
watched...
the Dame in Downton Abbey.
No, that's not where she's popular. For me, my favorite movie of all time is Sister Act 2.
She was one of the nuns.
She was the nun. She was the number one nun.
How did they get her onto that movie?
Why? What's wrong with the movie?
No, nothing's wrong with the movie. Just, it's a weird vessel for Dame Maggie Smith.
Hail, holy.
Yeah, it's just interesting. It's like,
It's an excellent movie.
interesting choice.
And that's what shocked me. I was like, how old was she then? Because Sister Act was done in 91 and 93.
Yes.
She looked 80.
And then in the first Harry Potter, she just kind of...
aged down a little bit. But she's always looked old. There's something that the British people... I don't know what they be eating. The British and the Italians, they just live a very long time.
True.
And the Japanese.
True.
The rest of us Africans, we wait the water. A few of us make it to 100. The rest of us,
Just
70, 80, you're good there. Boof.
Okay, and on that depressing note, what am I drinking today?
Nothing.
Well, I'm drinking green tea and mint. That's what I drink. I even brought it from home.
What do you call it? Green tea and mint?
Because that's what it's called. It's called green tea and mint.
Pink. It's like a purple gold paper.
It's purple and blue.
And it's just called green
tea.
No, it's called mint. It's not called green tea.
It's green tea and mint.
It's like peppermint or something.
Yeah, so it's part of like they have like an entire green tea.
So this is different
section.
from your usual.
No, this is my green tea and mint. This
the purple box.
Yeah, the purple box. The purple box.
What are you gonna do if you ever left the country?
I've actually been thinking about this a lot. I know exactly what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna have one suitcase that is just Kenyan food, like roiko, ugali flour, chapati flour.
You can get ugali flour and chapati flour.
I'm sorry. Why would I pay more for it over there when I'm coming from
Madam,
home?
have you ever watched those like airport stories of like African and Indian women like going in and then the suitcase is open and it's like nyanyas.
Actually,
please.
No, okay. So the thing that I know I'm gonna miss the most if I ever leave are Kenyan sausages, and I'm not talking about like dick. I'm actually talking about Farmer's Choice.
No one, not even one person.
I feel like there was somebody out there that was that the thought crossed their mind. I thought, let me preempt
Kenyan
it.
sausages. Everyone knew you were talking about Farmer's Choice
I
sausages.
will miss Farmer's Choice so much. Yeah.
Just eat them all when you're done here, and then it gives you an excuse
To do what? To
to
come back.
want to visit your country.
See, my family, my friends are here. My partner is here.
For some people, that's not enough.
God.
It's true.
I'm so sorry.
For some people, it's not enough. You're like, oh, my family.
Sorry.
Uh.
If anything, I'll come back for Kilifi. I'll always come back for Kilifi.
I thought you were gonna say you'd come back for Kariithi.
Nah.
Ouch. Anyways, get to what we're talking about today.
Okay, so today is the Tom Mboya episode. I mean, at the time of us talking and us recording, I've titled this episode The Original Obama, but like it doesn't make sense. So we'll see what comes up as we talk.
Well, it's kind of apt because he helped the original Obama.
He did help the OG.
Obama Senior.
Yeah, Obama. And also in a sense of like you have this young, charismatic politician who everyone believes is going to be the change we need in this world. And everyone is backing.
I was going to use this fact much later on, but let me use it now since I have like 5 facts, so I'm just going to sprinkle them like salt. Just a little here, a little there, and we're good. Now, Lord Evelyn Baring.
Sure.
I think that was his name.
You mean Evelyn? E-V-E?
Okay, Evelyn.
Wait, how do you spell it?
E-V-E something.
Okay, sure.
Baring. Let's just call him Lord Baring.
Okay.
I remember asking if he was like the reason Baringo was called like Baringo, but no, it's not. But Lord Baring, he was one of the last colonial secretaries of Kenya. Mm-hmm. And when he was dealing with Tom Mboya, he called him?
What?
The Kenyan Kwame Nkrumah.
Boom.
So you call him the Kenyan Obama. They called him the Kenyan Nkrumah.
I think, well, this is something we'll definitely get into. So spoilers, but that goes to show you just how well revered this man was across the continent and also around the entire world. Because you have, when he was assassinated, you had American civil rights leaders mourn his passing. It was discussed on the floor of the U.S. Congress. We'll get into why it was discussed, because it's not for the reason that you think. But he mattered in the scale of like global politics. His death mattered.
And he's really motivated politicians to this date.
Yeah.
Like I see certain politicians and I'm like, I think they kind of molded themselves around
who?
Tom Mboya. This is gonna sound very odd.
It is going to sound incredibly odd.
But I think Johnson Sakaja. Think of one of the reasons Tom Mboya was so impressive is in a generation of already young leaders. He was young. And he was younger. When he won his first election, I think he was 27.
He was in his late 20s, yeah.
27. By the time Sakaja was an MP, he was in his late 20s as well. By the time he got into something else, he was in his 30s. Sakaja was 32. He won his first election at 27, Sakaja at 32. You look at the way he talks, very politically, it sounds central. It sounds like he's always fighting for things. That was Tom Mboya. But also very well aligned. And he knew where power was.
Yes.
And you look at someone like Sakaja, why I get impressed by him is he aligns with power. He knew that the wall was written on Uhuru's reign long before many other people.
Yeah.
Also seen as geniuses in their time. Like Tom Mboya had led very many, what are they called? Trade unions. Sakaja was thought of as a key player in the calculations of the 2013 election. Like, these are big guys.
So you're seeing similarities between Sakaja and Mboya?
A little bit.
Okay, well...
I'm seeing him wanting to be like Mboya.
Okay, so like, let's get this started. Word to the wise, I have not edited the script. Like, I finished writing it on Monday and I was like, fuck it, we're done. Fuck it, we are going to do this live.
Okay. We'll do it live. Okay. We'll do it live! Fuck it!
Oh, God. Spelling errors.
Spelling errors, grammatical errors, long-ass sentences. We are going to... It'll be the blind leading the slightly less blind on this one.
Who is the slightly less blind in this situation?
I am both the blind and the slightly less blind.
Okay, fine.
Things are going to surprise me in the script because, okay. Now!
Meow. There's no cat here.
Well, I said...
You said meow.
I said meow. No, we can't get distracted. It's been 22 minutes and we haven't started the episode.
Sorry.
Okay, so today, it might be a two-part, it might not be a two-parter, we'll see. We're going to talk about Tom Mboya's assassination. Both what we know, what we don't know, and why we don't know what we don't know. Because that's really important. We're going to
repeat that.
What we know.
What we know.
What we don't know. And why we don't know what we don't know.
Why we don't know what we don't know.
Yes.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Got it. Got you.
Right? So in this entire series, we're going to cover his early life, his entry into national politics, as a labor organizer, and then the creation of the Kennedy Airlift Program, because that was really cool. The one that led to President Barack Obama Jr., fine specimen with an even finer wife. And in the next...
Something tells me you have a crush on Obama.
Obama, yes, but also Michelle. Her armies make me feel so safe.
She looks like she swims.
Yeah,
Swim arms.
She looks like the kind of person who you would believe when they say everything's gonna be okay.
Okay, yeah, I didn't see that. I sort of saw Melly from Scandal.
No, in terms of strength, yes, but Melly's story is tragic.
Not in terms of also political ambition. Something about Michelle makes me think she still has. She
Something
put
left.
aside political ambition and she's thinking about it. She's thinking about it. She'll never admit it, but something just tells me she's thinking about it.
Okay.
Maybe not president, but like mayor.
Okay, so Thomas Joseph Odiambo Mboya, or TJ Mboya, was born on August 15th, 1930, on a sisal estate in Thika to Leonardus Njege and Marcella Awor. He was one of 7 siblings, 5 boys, 2 girls, and both his parents were from Western Kenya. They moved to Thika or the White Highlands in search of employment. And they found work on the colonial farm of a guy called Sir William Northrop Macmillan as low-income sisal cutters. There we go. Sometime after his birth, Mboya's father, Leonard, was promoted to be like the overseer of the plantation. And according to Mboya in his book Freedom and After, his father was earning about £1.50 per month, or roughly 20,000 shillings in today's money. From
Per
his
month?
yeah,
No, bad.
with 7 kids though.
Okay, terrible.
With 7
terrible,
kids.
Terrible.
But still, he managed to save £3, roughly 40,000 shillings, in today's money to cover Mboya's yearly school fees.
£3 was 40,000 Kenya shillings in today's money.
Yeah, because it's basically 2 months' salary. He managed to save that for Mboya's school fees.
40,000 shillings.
Yes.
It's 3. Okay, so
You're counting for inflation.
that's super.
Yeah. Yeah, man, you like never ever look at what a currency was worth. It's depressing. You realize money doesn't mean shit. But we're not going to get into that because I know you have thoughts. So, in 1939, Mboya was sent to school in Cumberland. Now, before we continue, it is important to note that already, let's say 9 years, at 9 years old, Mboya has already been exposed to 3 different cultures. The Kikuyu culture, the Luo culture, and now he's about to be exposed to the Kamba culture. He's the quintessential third culture kid.
Another thing that connects him a little to Sakaja a little bit.
Really? Sakaja's a third culture kid?
Sakaja's never claimed to any tribe. Everyone knows his tribe, but he's never claimed
Interesting.
like to be by his tribe.
So, do you know what a third culture kid is? Because some people might not know what it is, and I don't want to assume.
So I'm gonna guess based on critical thinking.
Sure.
So you said a third culture child. They've been exposed to 3 cultures. Or they've made their own culture.
Okay.
Just explain.
So the term was coined by U.S. sociologist Ruth Hill Useem in the 1950s, and it means like children who spend a lot of their formative years in places that aren't their parents' homeland. For example, I'm a third culture kid because I spent most of my childhood not in Kenya, and also not in Gema land. I was in the coast.
You went to put your feet up and wear slippers.
Of course. But one of the wonderful things about third culture kids, and I'm not gassing myself up here, like I've seen it across third culture kids. It's the truth. They have a broader worldview, and they're much more culturally aware. Because like you're constantly, for want of a better word, dealing with a lot of cultural difference and having to mediate between those differences as you figure out who you are.
Okay.
So there's a guy called Van Recken, a lady called Ruth E. Van Recken, who explains why third culture kids just are able, like their brains think this way. And they say like the classic profile of a third culture kid is somebody with a global perspective, who is socially adaptable and intellectually flexible. They're quick to think outside the box and can appreciate and reconcile different points of view. Beyond whatever diversity in background or appearance a third culture kid may bring to the party, there is a diversity of thought as well. And this is exactly what Mboya was able to do in his later political career. He was definitely a person of like a national mindset, because I think he spoke Kiswahili, English, Luo, a bit of Kikuyu, and a bit of Kamba.
I think he was fluent in Kikuyu and Kamba.
Yeah, Kikuyu. Like, point is, the man was a polyglot. Polyglot? Polyglot.
He could speak
many languages is
many
what I'm
languages
trying to say.
at a very high level. Very eloquent. You should listen to some of his speeches.
Oh, I have. They're beautiful. Oh my word.
Just realized this is the one thing that I'm like, man, if you listen to the speeches, and it's a bit bad because they were being trained by the Mzungus.
Yes.
But
they all sound the same.
The speeches of those first leaders, very eloquent, very. It is impertinent that we, as the Kenyan people, speak.
Can I ask you a question? Did your grandfather used to speak like that at home? Like very...
What they had, all of them, was like a mix of English and Kikuyu.
Yeah.
So he sounded, if I'm remembering, he died 11 years ago, so it's very hard to remember. But as I'm remembering, he sounded like Kibaki. Like his accent was like Kibaki. So to the new person with a very high British accent, you're like, that's not really a British accent.
Like on
but it was
Jonjo.
very... All of them sounded... No, Jonjo was a bit beyond them in terms of he really wanted to be a British man. But when you listen to people like John Mishuki, Mwai Kibaki, and there's a few, Kenneth Matiba, that group all had similar accents. They had a mix of Kikuyu and then very high eloquence. So they'd shrub a few things, but very eloquent. So that was my grandfather. Same thing.
Okay, so
The same as Mboya, but Mboya had a bit of the Luo accent.
it was sprinkled in
While
there.
my grandfather had a bit of the Kikuyu accent.
Okay, so all of this began when he went to school in Cumberland in 1939. This is where his intellectual journey began. While he was there, he lived with his religion teacher's family, a member of the Akamba ethnic group. And while later in life, while he's recalling the experience, he says that the teacher, and I quote, lived very simply and very tribally with his wife and children in a mud and wattle hut with no sanitary facilities and no piped water. Mboya adds, he took me sometimes to his other home in the reserve, and I still remember how dry it was, just scrub and thorn trees, and how the children were obviously lacking in vitamins and suffering from yaws and eyesores, end quote.
Okay.
The conditions at his school weren't any better. First, all he learned at that first school was how to recite prayers and the catechism. C-A-T-E-C-H-I-S-M. C-A-T-E-C-H-I-S-M. Catechism. Catechism? I think it's catechism.
Just say it for me. C-A-T...
C-H-I-S-M.
H-I...
You see,
Catechism.
like, I should have practiced the script before coming here. Catechism. Catechism?
Catechism. It's okay. Yeah, catechism.
Catechism.
So it's like catechism.
Catechism. So, and a catechism.
Catechism.
There we go.
We got there.
It took so long.
And by the way, when I was saying catechism, I was actually reading the dictionary thing.
So he was, at the first school, he learned prayers and a catechism. The catechism are like the summary statements of faith, things like the Apostles' Creed, the Ten Commandments, the Lord's Prayer. And then the second thing was that this school was incredibly ill-equipped. Like, they did their lessons under a tree, they had no books, or slates where they were learning how to write. They would literally like use their finger and draw on the sand. Like that's how they learned.
Wow.
And in 1942, Mboya moved from the school and he went to St. Mary's School, which is a boarding school located in central Nyanza.
Yeah.
To help cover his... Is it still a thing?
What?
St. Mary's School. Is it
There are
still
many
a thing?
St. Mary's schools.
Okay, fine, fair enough.
So it's just named
just
after
like, yeah.
saints. It's Catholic schools. So Catholic schools will name them after saints.
Yeah.
So it's not the famous St. Mary's School of Nairobi where Uhuru Kenyatta attended.
IB
But it is
kid.
Nyanza. I don't think he did IB.
I feel like he did IB.
IB didn't exist.
IB has been around for a minute, since like the
Everyone
60s.
did O level. That's what they all did. O level.
Boring.
So the Nyanza one, while still quite known, I think it's known because of Mboya.
Yeah.
But it's not related to the famous St. Mary's.
So, St. Mary's School, Nyanza. He was a boarding student. He couldn't afford the full fees, so to help cover his fees, he would be working in the kitchen with the school priests. Sorry, as an aside, I really, really had to like not make any jokes in here because you know, history. But in school, Mboya also served as the altar boy and choir member. It was in St. Mary's School that Mboya began to study English and history. It was whitewashed, but nevertheless, he was still learning something. And as he learned, he began to consider the career options before him. So first, he thought about becoming a priest, but the more he learned, the more he thought. And the deeper he thought, the clearer it became that the church was just an engine of and for colonialism. In his book, Freedom and After, he recounts a conversation he overheard between two missionaries who both supported racial segregation and believed that African boys should be less educated. Lest they, learn how to be independent. And in Freedom and After, Mboya writes, and I quote, "The church came almost to preach to us in terms of a blueprint of the British social and cultural system, which they regarded as representing civilization and Christianity."
Which he kind of abided to later, but anyways.
You want to get into that later?
Get into it. As in, he was the face of the West in Kenya.
Yes.
But anyways.
Yes, he was.
I digress.
Put simply, Mboya fervently believed that these missionaries did not come to teach us about Christ. They came to teach us about whiteness and the UK.
That's true.
As a result of teaching us about those things, that we suck. Like that's those two lessons are very close to each other.
Enlighten
When
the darkened, dumb, what's the word? Primitive African man.
Yeah. So Mboya didn't want to do this. He said, "Miss me with that shit." And he looked somewhere else for his career. As he looked, he finished his primary education. And then in 1945, he joined Holy Ghost College. I believe he was 15 years old. Currently, Mangu High School. Mangu.
That's a big school.
Isn't that on Thika Road?
Yeah.
Hey, I know. Look at me.
Exit Thika Road, but yeah, you're close enough. Another big person who went to Mangu a few years before him. Our third president.
Kibaki. I thought so.
Kibaki went to Mangu.
I thought so. Other famous alumni include Hilary Ngweno, the first editor of the Daily Nation.
Not just the first editor of the Daily Nation. Please,
Okay.
put some respect on his name. He went to Harvard and studied physics. Then came to Kenya and decided that he's not doing physics, he's going to be a literature major. He's the first, I think he was the youngest African first editor of the Nation. Then he goes and he makes things like Makers of a Nation, which actually exposed an ignorant country to a speck of history. Because what had happened is he looked and in my opinion, I really wish I met the guy before he died like last year. But in my opinion, he probably looked at people as like, oh my God, these guys know nothing. So all he did was give you a brief of the history. Like now, those of us who love history, watch it and we're like, oh, there's so much missing.
Yeah.
But what he did was he exposed our minds, our eyes, our brains, our lives to Kenyan history. Rest well, Hilary Ngweno.
Other famous alumni of the Mangu School of the Mangu School include George Saitoti and Dr. Patrick Njoroge.
That is odd because there are also famous alumni of something else. But we'll get there.
We'll get there.
We'll
So,
get there.
Mboya graduated from the school in 1947. Unfortunately, he was not able to continue with his education because his father could no longer afford the school fees he needed.
Yep.
So now Mboya needed to figure out, how do I maximize
What's next?
Yeah, what's next? How do I maximize the hand that life has dealt me? And he thought back to all the years he spent at Holy Ghost's medical office and decided to build upon the skills he learned there. So in 1948, Mboya joined the Royal Sanitary Institute's School for Sanitary Inspectors in Nairobi. At the same time, he also earned a certificate in economics at Efficiency Correspondence College of South Africa. While at the Royal Sanitary Institute, Mboya became president of the Students' Council, and as president, he mediated conflicts between students and the administration.
Have you always wondered what it meant to be going to school via correspondence? I really think how long is it? You finish an assignment and you send it. How long of a wait?
So what's interesting is that I think online learning is kind of like school by correspondence.
Yeah, but it's efficient.
But it's that instantaneous communication. Yeah, you do have a point because back in the day when all you had were letters and telegrams and maybe the occasional phone call.
What phone call?
See, the phone was a thing in the 1950s.
Very few phone booths in Kenya. Very few. There were very few. As in, it wouldn't be something that they'd be doing all the time.
Okay, true.
So if you're learning by a correspondence,
you
it's
really
sending
want that
letters. It's not even that. like I send these assignments and then I wait how long for them to be returned or for my grades to be found, and
Assuming that your assignments aren't lost at sea.
oh my god. And then how do you even get, think of the whole system of education. How do you even get accepted to schools? Like, how do you apply to schools and universities then? How do you do it?
From what if I remember the movies, it's like big old application packets with everything in like triplicate.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, the internet has really saved
Hey,
us.
we've moved, man.
We've really come far.
Even though some of these schools still require us to send them
Things.
documents.
Yes,
hard
it's
copies.
annoying.
It's very annoying.
It's annoying. So in 1950, Mboya qualified as an inspector and joined the Nairobi City Council in 1951.
Mm-hmm.
He was 21 years
Can you
old.
imagine that? Can you imagine
I
that?
really can't.
What was I doing at 21? Sleeping. I was going to class, finishing class, going home and sleeping.
What was I doing? I was finishing my degree. Yeah.
Can you
Yeah.
imagine you should have been at city council by then.
I should have had a job.
Should have been like, and think after 21, just keep going with the story. He just makes you feel bad.
It makes me feel bad about myself.
Yeah.
So once he was in the city council, Mboya was elected as the secretary of the African Staff Association.
At what age?
And at 21. Okay, Kariithi, don't compare yourself to other people. You're only competing against yourself.
Nonsense.
That's the truth.
Nonsense.
Okay, I know for a fact you and I have had this discussion before.
It's a fact. You're always competing. It's true. It's a really good mindset to hold.
Yes.
However, if you're seeing a man as great as Tom Mboya or Kibaki, if you listen to their stories, and by the time they're 30, these guys, oh my god.
Okay, but listen, and I know you and I have had this conversation in the past, and it's that I feel like it was a lot easier to be brilliant in the past.
I think it was
Like
harder.
a lot easier because
It was easier.
Yeah.
Like the path was there. It was drawn. But think of it this way. I remember. I think it was when I was doing some research on Kibaki, and speaking to my old man, and he was like, think of it this way. Kibaki was in a group of like how many siblings? Out of all his siblings, it was him and like one other who went to school. So still, like, what if I'm not that other? Then me,
You're stuck.
I'm still herding the cows. And the reason that Kibaki was sent was because he was useless to them.
Yes.
He couldn't herd cows well and herd and goats well. So you go try this thing the Mzungus are trying, because honestly you're not helping us make any money. Just go.
Okay,
so
but
still, like, yes, the ones who made it.
Yeah.
And it was very simple. Like the process was easier, but the amount of people who didn't get exposed to it.
I think it's very much high risk, high reward in that in the past, it was a lot easier to stand out because nobody had a degree. Nobody had a master's. Whereas right now, everyone has a degree.
Yeah.
A lot of my friends are getting their masters.
Can you imagine?
And it's like, it just makes it feel a lot harder for us to stand out and be brilliant.
Because like but think of it this way. Look at Tom Mboya's story. Like you have the ones who did their masters.
Yeah.
Like according to how Tom Mboya worked, we should not have even been thinking about our master. We should right now be exposing, like leading the country.
You should be, you and I.
Trying to, you and I, because he won his first election, as we said, at 27. I am there. I am at that age.
Yes, but you've had a different. You can't compare his life
But
to
look at
yours.
Sahaja, look at Kibaki. Like, you want to be brilliant like
You
them?
do, but you can't.
Anyways,
You really
like,
can't. It sucks.
What
but
is
you
it called?
can't.
What are they called? No, there's the early bloomer and the late bloomer. We work on the late bloomer. We bloom late. But the late bloom is the most.
I was going to say the Mulan thing.
It is Mulan, yeah?
Yeah, it's Mulan. It's Mulan.
Look, this one's late, but I'll bet that when it blooms, it will be the most beautiful of all.
Please don't sue me, Daddy Disney. I have no money. Okay, thanks, bye.
So, at 21, he was elected the secretary of the African Staff Association.
Yes.
And thus began his journey as a national leader.
Trade unionist.
Yes, Mboya and the association went across the country to mobilize other staff associations to create one big national government workers' union. Naturally, he was met with resistance. Well, I shouldn't say naturally because there's nothing natural or essential about this resistance. It did not need to happen.
It must always happen.
And yet it did. And remember, like, we're in the early 1950s, so Kenya is a powder keg. Right, World War II has just ended. The economy is booming. But, you know, much of this wealth is being accumulated and hoarded by the white settlers, leaving very little for everyone else. People have gone out there, seen that white men are, like, human beings, seen that they're fighting for freedom, come back home and been like, and me?
Yeah.
What about me? So you then have, like, the birth of the Kenya Land and Freedom Army, or the Mau Maus. Essentially, like, things were very, 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 very tense. And in essence, Mboya had to wade through this tension while doing something that might be misconstrued as an inherently political act. An act of resistance and rebellion, which is getting the workers of this country, many of whom are black, to organize and come together against their bosses, many of whom are white.
But imagine in his head, he's like, there is my vehicle.
Yes.
That is my vehicle.
Especially after national political parties were banned in 1950.
Yes.
Like, it was a light bulb.
Even his first ever rival, who he quashed quite early, Africa's first lawyer, Kenya's first qualified lawyer, Aileen and Kariithi.
Yes.
He had to change his party's name. It was the Kenya something.
Yeah.
He had to change it to the Nairobi. Like, they had banned national parties, and you had to only have tribal ones. But then you had these leaders who are not tribal leaders, like Tom Mboya, Aileen and Kariithi. They were more based in Nairobi, which was this metropolitan.
So
then they had to call themselves via their province.
Yeah. So by the 1950s, Mboya had already mobilized enough people to form a new trade union called the Kenya Local Government Workers Union, or KLGWU. The KLGW, that's what I'm going to call it, because that acronym is clunky. The KLGW, that's not fun either. By the way, it's still active and kicking. Like, in 2021, the members of the Kisumu branch of the union threatened to paralyze government operations over alleged intimidation and harassment by a senior county official.
I thought it all got absorbed into
Kotu.
Because he's known as the father of Kotu.
He is and we're going to get into why he founded Kotu, because it's for entirely, like, craven political reasons.
This guy was a politician.
That ended up shooting himself in the foot.
Unfortunately.
but to my understanding, it's like Kotu's like the head, and then organizations like KLGW
they function like underneath.
Yeah.
And then they come together. Okay.
That's what it feels like. But before we could get down to business with this union, Operation Jock Scott happened.
Basically. Mau.
Okay, what happened?
The what is it called? The emergency.
Yes. It was like right at the beginning of the emergency. 180 prominent leaders were arrested. British troops were deployed on Kenyan soil, even though it was not a state of war, and African newspapers were banned.
Yep.
This all happened before the various factions fighting for Kenyan independence could come together and coordinate their actions. Yeah. So this left the fight for independence fragmented, but not obliterated like the British had hoped. In fact, a lot of people were like, "The fuck you will," and this spurred them into action.
Absolutely.
It also, in particular, incensed Mboya and actually drove him to join the Kenya African Union before it was banned. He would participate in KAU activities. And in 1940, and you know, when the KLGW was formed in 1953, Mboya became its first national general secretary. A general secretary, or a GenSec, leads a union and is responsible for implementing its policy, managing resources.
GenSec?
General secretary is too many syllables. GenSec.
That just sounds like.
It sounds like something I heard in MUN. Like, let me not lie to you.
GenSec.
Yeah, GenSec. You're gonna be the GenSec.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
This is such a Gen Z.
So for reference, think of Atwoli, but better.
Basically, we've had three fathers of unionism in Kenya. You have Tom Mboya.
Makan Singh as well.
Oh yes, you have Makan Singh, but that was a different one. He was fighting alongside, if I can remember. I want to get his book. His book looks so interesting. It's just very hard to find.
Try online.
Makan Singh. Yeah, I should just.
Z Library is back, by the way.
I should steal it. That's what you're saying.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm just making it known that Z Library is back. Whatever you choose to do with that information is between you, the law, and your God.
Anyways, Makan Singh had a very good book. When I was doing some research, very interesting, the work he did. I can't remember most of it. But Makan Singh, yes, the Tom Mboya. So in the context of the African Kenyan, you have Tom Mboya, who's the father. Then you have Lubembe, who was like the Kotu guy, the guy who came right after Tom Mboya.
Okay.
And then you have our guy. Atwoli. It's a holy trinity. So those are the generations of unionism in Kenya.
When you said Atwoli, and then you have
our guy.
Atwoli.
You know, Atwoli makes me so happy.
Why?
Because to be a unionist, you have to be a bit of a gangster. I think that's a fact.
True.
Look at the New York, look at the U.S. unions, like the trucks. They were led by the mafia.
Oh, construction, yeah.
They were led by the mafia.
Yeah,
it was not even it was the mafia.
It was a mafia. Everyone knew this.
So you have to be a bit of a gangster to be a unionist. But what makes me so happy about this one, I don't know much about Lubembe, but Atwoli throws away iPhones like they're nothing. That is a rich man.
And yet he's the head of a labor union.
Have you ever watched him?
I have watched him.
He gets a call, throws it like, damn, bro. Someone should they should make a company that just resell Atwoli's phones. Like, does he do that at every meeting? Like, hello, throw it. I'm done with that one. I'll buy a new one. You know, give me one of those iPhones.
Do you think he's being that? Do you think he's still being that reckless with his phones, given the current exchange rate?
Yes. He's a very rich man.
Yeah, but again, as a labor union leader,
he's also, I think he's Africa's number 2. He used to be, I think he's Africa's number 2.
Number 2 what?
For like the African coordination of labor unions.
Oh, geez.
And globally, he was like the secretary. Like, he's a big guy. He is huge.
Have we been sleeping on Atwoli?
People have been sleeping on Atwoli. Atwoli is huge. Just listen to him boast. You listen, you're like, oh,
listen,
God.
He's giving me divorced dad energy.
Oh, now think of divorced dad with the wallet of Elon Musk.
Yeah,
like
exactly, like divorced dad
like he
energy.
just has so much money, and all those international labor organizations that he's leading or he's secretary of, they will pay him in dollars.
Okay, so let's get back on track, because we've been talking
Tom,
for 15
Josiah,
minutes.
or Joseph or Josiah.
15 minutes, and we've only done 3 pages.
Also?
Of 15. And we both know I'm too lazy to actually go through this and like edit out the banter.
Oh God.
So enjoy
It's
taking
like a 10-parter.
enjoy taking this raw, people.
Pause.
Yes.
Pause.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anyway, where was I? Okay, so after the KAU was banned, Klugu became the voice of the people, which means that Tom Mboya was the voice of the people. Quoting from Charles Hornsby, and I quote, "Over the next 2 years, Mboya won a series of victories for trade unionism. As one of the few remaining voices for Africans, he propelled himself into the national spotlight, resolving a series of industrial protests in a way that promoted both union recognition and wage increases. Although he took pride in being a Luo, Mboya spoke Gikuyu and Kikamba, denounced tribalism, and appealed to Kenyans of every ethnic group."
Tell me that is not a little like our young Sakaja. Just say.
Okay, so in 1955, to increase Klugu's efficiency, Mboya pushed for a partnership between Klugu and the Kenya Federation of Registered Trade Unions.
That one, Codex. No, it wasn't Codex.
I mean, I'm a hack and a fraud, so I didn't do the follow-up research.
You're a fraud.
Hack and a fraud. So later, this combined marriage labor thing became the Kenya Federation of Labor, and once unified, Mboya dominated this union too. He was so damn good at his job that even the Americans took notice. And we're not talking about today's America, which resembles a girl who peaked in high school. I'm talking about peak Americana, like that girl in actual high school, like how she was. The CIA had just been founded, communism was an existential threat, and Americans were willing to do literally everything to defeat the Red Terror, including looking to black people whom they genuinely believed were shit and giving them money to prevent the spread of communism. Yay, I guess.
Cold War.
And the CIA actually identified Mboya as somebody to watch.
Yes.
The CIA themselves. So by the time he came into their radar, Mboya had already built links with British and African American labor movements, and his ability to build bridges over class, race, and even nationality made him a person of interest to the CIA. He was a perfect nationalist hero, and he was seen to be safer than Jomo Kenyatta. So the CIA founded the American Federation of Labor, Congress of Industrial Organizations, or the AFL-CIO. This was a front that funded the International Confederation of Free Trade Unions, which itself funded Mboya and his activities in Kenya.
These guys loved long-winded acronyms. Damn. Kugulu
It's
and
a lot. So the point I'm trying to make here is that Mboya got CIA money.
Yes.
Quoting from...
Isolated him out, but they didn't love him, but they saw him as necessary.
Yeah. And what he was getting from the CIA was about £1,000 a month at its peak in like the mid to early 60s. This is equivalent to nearly 500,000 shillings in today's money every month that Mboya was getting from the CIA.
Someone give me. Give me.
Do you want it?
500,000
every month
to be
just
on the side of the CIA.
Yes. Would
Please.
you?
Yes.
Really? Mr. Pan-Africanist yourself?
We have agreed on many times on this podcast that this is a podcast of hypocrites.
Oh my God.
I have told you I'm a Pan-Africanist. I have told you I am against capitalism. But when I hear 500,000 shillings, that all goes to the dustbin and the Kikuyu comes out. Besha, please.
So you would sell your own people out for a check?
Or am I selling them out?
Okay.
Just joining a side.
It's the CIA. It's not the side you want to be on.
What's the other side?
Not the CIA.
Tell me which one did not align one side or the other. The leaders were either Marxist and went with Russia or Cuba or those countries, or they were non-aligned and went quietly with Russia, Cuba, or USA, or they were openly with the USA.
So you're saying everyone picked a side, just some people were not explicit with the side.
100%. For example, Jomo Kenyatta. We all know he picked a side. The West. That's why he retained his position quite well. However, he had Odinga who'd help him do with Eastern affairs a little bit. He had Mboya for America, Bruce Mackenzie and Charles Jojo for Britain. But he had definitely picked a side. But his state was, I am non-aligned. Yet he was a capitalist.
Yes.
So everyone has picked a side. No one was, the ones who were probably non-aligned and didn't were like Nkrumah and they were thrown out.
So let's like bring this back to Mboya, because we don't know if he knew where he was getting the money from. We knew like in later life he said he had no idea. He would deny the connection between him and the CIA vociferously, like very passionately.
He's a political person.
Yeah, nobody's ever going to admit, hey, by the way, I'm friends with a guy that killed Lumumba. Like nobody's going to admit that, especially if you're an African freedom fighter.
It's too easy of a target on your back.
It is, but his later politics, in terms of like why he would accept this money, his later politics suggest that he took this money because it was a smart move. Above all, Mboya was a pragmatist. He was not. It's not that he fervently believed in like Americanism or capitalism, what have you. He was like, they're giving me money. I need money. I'm fine. I'll take it.
Tom Mboya was the ultimate politician. He was conniving.
Yes, Machiavellian.
Very educated. Very thoughtful about his moves and very precise. So when he's making a move, as you said, he's thinking 3-4 moves in advance. He's like, what can these Americans expose me to? Money. What do I require money to? To further my political career.
Yeah.
All those things. And anyways, I don't want to be assassinated like Pio Gama Pinto later, or like
Arwing Skodek later,
or like Malcolm X by the CIA. I don't want them to kill me. Oh wait, I still got killed.
So beyond this, and before we get to his murder, beyond like his whole trade unionism, getting money from the CIA, all that fun stuff, the 1950s were equally a busy time for our boy TJ. In 1955, he was awarded a scholarship to Ruskin College in Oxford. At Oxford, he kind of left with an appreciation of socialism, or more accurately, social democracy, or the idea that we need to create an enabling economy that spurs rapid economic growth and then reinvest the wealth we get into our people, as opposed to like into businesses and perpetuating that growth.
Okay.
He also left Oxford with a profound and engaging ability to articulate the ills of colonialism and British imperialism. Put simply, Mandem left ready to fuck shit up. The knowledge he gained would only highlight his organizational capacities and the vision for the country that he had. More importantly, for world history, Mboya was left with an appreciation of the necessity of education, especially as a tool of independence. For Mboya, the call for independence was not a call to reject everything associated with colonialism. In Challenges of Nationhood, he writes, and I quote, "There is the recent past of colonial rule, littered with memories of colonial suppression, but also with modern scientific methods of production, education. Soon we want to harness fully the advantages of this colonial past and use it as an instrument of contact with the rest of the world," end quote. Education for Mboya was the only way to take the shittiness that we got from colonialism and turn it into something worthwhile. Yeah. Otherwise, you'd end up having a lot of consultants and foreign people coming to the country to come do that work.
Yeah.
And that's how neocolonialism begins.
That's how it happened.
It's what's happening right now. But this understanding of the role of education really inspired him to create the Kennedy Airlift Program. So between 1959 and 1963, over 1,000 African students went to the US to study. A lot of these guys were Kenyans. And this program began after Mboya went to the States on a speaking tour. There he met MLK, Martin Luther King, and African American entertainers like Harry Belafonte and Sidney Poitier.
Those were the celebrities sort of in the forefront of like civil rights movements.
Yes.
Sidney Poitier a little less. I'm just remembering from a movie I watched where the extremists hated.
Guess who's coming for dinner?
No, it's I think it was called The Butler.
Wait.
It's a fiction.
The one
they
with
hated Sidney Poitier.
The one with what's his face?
Forrest Whitaker.
Yes.
Very good movie.
Yes.
Sidney Poitier, Harry Belafonte. They were people you always saw hand in hand with Martin Luther King.
Yeah. Singing
their songs. Very nice.
And Mboya was their friend, and they were Mboya's friends and allies in this noble cause. In a letter dated 8th November 1959, and he was writing to the New York Times, Mboya explained, and I quote, "Nothing constitutes a greater contribution to the struggle against poverty, disease, and political subjection in Africa more than the contribution made toward our people's educational advancement." So he created this program. And he even got JFK to donate $100,000 to the cost of airfare. Oof. Do you want to guess how much that is in 2023 money?
2 million.
$1 million.
Oh God.
133 million shillings that JFK just straight up gave to this program.
$1 million. Mboya was not alone though.
He wasn't alone.
He was with Keanu.
He wasn't alone. Like,
he partnered with Keanu.
He was together. It wasn't him alone, but he's most associated with it. It's like,
but he was working directly with Keanu, if I can remember.
Yeah. So the program only guaranteed a one-way ticket to the US. You would have to find your own school fees, your own living and maintenance costs, and also your own way back home.
Oof. Okay.
Yeah. And yet all of the students were able to get scholarships and figure shit out. They all did it.
But listen to the people he's got there.
I'm getting to it.
We'll go with your list.
So, and 95% of those who went would come back home and then shape Kenyan society for decades.
Absolutely.
And as an aside, like, that's not happening anymore. Like, anyone that has a chance to leave, especially for education, they're not thinking about coming back.
Many of them are.
At least, is that
but
changing?
They're coming back as capitalists. Before it was like coming back to impact my country and grow my country. I think that motivation to do so was overtaken by the motivation to make money.
Of course.
But I think that's changing. A lot of young people, a lot of millennials want to make an impact in the Kenyan environment. They're just stuck as to how to start. But they've come back. Like, many of them have come back. They've taken 50% cuts to their salaries, because let me not lie to you. What you're being paid there in America, here in Kenya, 200K is a great salary.
It's a wonderful salary.
It's a good salary. In America, that is
nothing.
Virtually poverty.
It not virtually, I think it is.
It's $2,000, basically. It's less than $2,000.
It's less than, but it's not great. 2,000 is not enough.
If you think about like LA or New York, the rent alone for someone is like $1,400.
Yeah.
So 2,000 is not a livable wage necessarily.
But in Kenya,
that's excellent. You are a middle to middle upper class.
Yes.
Very
So
comfortable.
some of the beneficiaries of this airlift program include, of course, Barack Obama Sr. We also have Wangari Maathai, George Saitoti, I think.
Yes, Wangari Maathai. That is so.
Yeah.
Barack Obama Sr. I think
Yes.
he became a PS.
He was also like an economic advisor to the government. Yeah.
Very big guy to the government. Wangari Maathai, our hero. Continue. I'm just gonna see if I know.
Okay. Dr. Ngendo Mwangi, Kenya's first female physician.
Sure.
Professor Miriam Were, an AIDS
I see
researcher.
where you're going with most of your. I see a problem here.
Okay, how is it a problem that I'm choosing to spotlight women?
No.
Why is it a problem?
It's not a problem.
Why is it a problem?
I was so ready with my I had my list of names. I was
Okay,
like,
fine.
we're gonna
Okay,
check
fine.
together.
Okay, fine. You know what? Fine.
And then you're like,
what is?
ooh.
Okay, what is on your list of names? Because I'm
I
curious.
had like George Saitoti, Elijah Mwangale, Josephat Karanja, who was the first ever, not first ever, who was a vice president for like the shortest time. Zachary Onyonka. I had James Kamotho. I had Wangari Maathai. I had Hilary Ngweno, and I had Jonathan Ngeno.
So you literally had like the one woman, and for me,
that is the one person.
I had the three.
You had all three. You know, like,
I had all three women.
I mean, it's fantastic because damn, but I was so ready with you because these are more popular people.
No,
I'm
because
like,
I was focusing on the women because like they rarely get
Ngendo.
spotlighted.
It's
with
very
AIDS.
nice. Like she was Africa's first.
First female physician. No, Kenya's first female physician.
This has to be your clip, I think.
This one here.
Yeah, woman power.
Just like the difference in and the way we think about history.
Not even that. Just name the women. As in Ngendo.
Ngendo Mwangi, Professor Miriam Were, and Wangari Maathai.
Those are the three you named. And then you said I think Saitoti. I think.
Okay, so
Barack Obama Sr.
So the reason Saitoti confuses me is because I remember him as being quite young looking. Yet when when you hear that this man went to college in the 60s, it does not compute with the image saved in my mind.
He was literally that generation. He would have been maybe slightly older than Raila, I think. Like born late 1930s or early 1940s.
Okay, so
let's get that generation right after the independence generation.
So let's get back into it.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So, as Mboya was doing the Kennedy airlift thing, Odinga was also like, let's also educate people, but with the East. And to hear him say it, he just wanted to prove, or rather Odinga just wanted to prove, that the communists were not the devils that the US and the UK were painting them out to be. Furthermore, he was also a bit sus with the kind of development agenda that these airlift graduates would imbibe and then apply into the country. So he was also trying to foster a sense of like intellectual variety in this new Kenya to give us the best possible shot.
And Tom Mboya was his rival.
Yeah, and I mean, there's also that one. It's also like that very petty reason of like, oh, your enemy's doing something, okay, I'm going to do it too, 10 times better.
Keep people.
Yeah. So as you're right, like Mboya and Odinga were often contrasted against each other, and that's because like Odinga was seen as the true Luo leader.
He was the Luo leader.
While Mboya, because of his background and his affiliation with the Kikuyu community, was just not. A newspaper article from the era even goes as far to condemn Mboya for not being Luo enough. And he was expected to fall in line with Odinga, and like every time he didn't, everyone was like, dude, what the fuck?
He did suffer from that. It's very interesting though. I don't know if you were gonna go to it, but the African Elected Members Organization, that was like, we had LegCo.
Yeah.
So LegCo, now when you vote, we were given, I think, 8 slots.
Yes.
For Africans.
Yes.
We had 2 Luos in those slots.
Yes.
Mboya beat his first rival, Albert Quebec, for the Nairobi councillor position. Looking at your tea very suspectively.
I felt like I saw something fall inside the cup. I'm not really trying to drink bugs or
Just
mosquitoes.
It's very healthy.
Sorry, continue. I interrupted.
So you have the African Elected Members Organization. Then you have Tom Mboya as the Nairobi representative. He was secretary of the African AEMO.
Yeah.
And who was chairman? It was Oginga Odinga.
Yes.
So it was a very interesting thing where they had to clash because both of them had the ambition of becoming the next president after Kenyatta. They knew they couldn't be one. But they both felt they could be 2.
Yeah.
So they look at the situation and they were meant to clash. Mboya would have had to need to tap into the Luo community to get votes.
He would have. and we'll get into this later. He didn't. He wasn't able to. Not consistently.
Yeah.
Or at least not when it mattered. But in this very beginning of his national political career, in which he's moving away from being a trade unionist first into just explicitly being a politician 24/7, you start to also realize that like his tendency to say that the ends justified the means is consistently going to bite him in the ass. But rather interestingly, the competition between Odinga and Mboya might have been the reason why Odinga was so insistent that it was Kenyatta or nothing, right? Because funnily enough, the rest of the Western world preferred Mboya as Kenya's first president.
Was it Mboya or Odinga?
It was Mboya.
Because I thought they approached Odinga.
They approached Odinga, but like Odinga also had like too many communist-y tendencies that they were suspicious of him.
Yes.
So it was very like
So
unsettling.
Mboya was the choice.
Mboya was the choice.
Odinga was the one who was offered.
Yeah, apparently. Apparently in side chats, Colonial Secretary Ian MacLeod pulled Mboya and James Gishuru aside and asked the two of them to form a government without Kenyatta.
Yes, I remember him. I remember that. The story of how many of them, and I think Odinga was approached the same, were approached to let the government be created while Kenyatta was in prison.
And they all said?
They said no.
They all said no. And you have to wonder if like Odinga did that out of the goodness of his heart. Like, because if you're all working together and building a case for one guy, it unifies the country in pursuit of a very common and very single goal. But you also have to wonder if he just was really petty and was like, nah, I don't want my rival to be the first president. It's me and then him. But if it's not going to be me, it's Kenyatta.
It's very possible.
Yeah. But here's where Mboya kind of fucked up. Because you know when you have like these side chats that you don't really want anyone to find out about and you're supposed to keep them secret, Kenyatta found out the British government had approached Mboya to be the first president.
But you always find out, I think.
Yeah.
You always find out.
You always find out, but that doesn't mean, like, you could have tried harder to hide it. I don't know. I really don't know. But one last note about Mboya's connection to the US. Did you know that he brought Thurgood Marshall to Kenya to help us with our constitution?
The constitution, yeah.
He did that without telling anyone. He just kind of invited Thurgood Marshall. Then Marshall got here, and everyone was asking him, who brought you here? And like, Mboya did. Who's paying for you? Mboya said everyone would handle it. And everyone's like, Mboya, we did not send you there to do this. What the hell? And it's this tendency to like believe that the ends are going to justify the means consistently. That not only helps Mboya feel like I'm constant, like whatever I'm doing is right, but it also alienates him from the group that's supposed to have his back. And again, that's going to come and bite him in the ass. But later.
Thurgood Marshall. Yeah, Mboya was a big guy in the constitutional process. I think he was also sent to Lancaster.
He was.
With Kinam.
He was.
What's that guy called? Muliro.
So, it's 1963. Kenya's independent, and Mboya has been called upon to serve his country. It's unclear if he was called because he was competent, or because he was well-connected, or because he was a threat, or all of the above.
Or because America said...
or because America insisted. Yeah.
Just like the British were like, give us our one.
Give us just the one.
Give us Bruce, then we'll take 9 PSs.
True,
or
but
19 PSs, something like that.
But
15.
already by 1963, Mboya was a political threat to everyone. In any room that he was in, and everyone knew it.
Everyone knew that Mboya was going to be the next president.
He was a man who was beloved by the people, by all the people. Doesn't matter if you're rich, poor, Kikuyu, Kamba, Swahili. Doesn't matter. You love this man. He represented their interest during the colonial era and was their voice during that time. The international community loved him. He was able to get them to give money to the country. This man was basically set up for the presidency.
I think, as you said, it's a complete contrast to the previous one we did of JM Kariuki, where the questions arose as to, yes, JM Kariuki's star was rising, but he was never on the path to become the president. No. While Tom Mboya, from step one,
21 when he was voted to be the head of that African
he was on track to become the second president of Kenya. And it was so clear as day, because you have Jomo Kenyatta, the old guard, the man, the Kikuyu, who represents the big part of the population, who's going to transition it to this young, American, Western-supported Luo. So it fit a lot of it connected a lot of dots that he'd be the next.
Yes.
But of course, a few people were not seeing that situation like very good. Group 1, Kenyatta's men. Group 2, Odinga's men. Group 3, Moi.
So in the 1960s, Kenyatta was careful to keep his suspicions about Mboya to himself, but he still voiced them to individuals who he trusted. He intended to use, and I quote, like this is according to an American diplomat who was telling the story. He said that Kenyatta intended to use check and balance tactics to maintain his own power with regard to Tom Mboya, as opposed to just cutting the head off and moving on. With Mboya, it was going to be more of a let's wait and see.
Yeah.
And Mboya was quickly appointed as cabinet minister with some very high-profile dockets. As Minister for Constitutional Affairs, he was a fantastic soldier. He led the amendment of the Constitution to increase Jomo's power. As the Minister of Labour, he created COTU, or the Central Organization of Trade Unions. And this is the umbrella organization for all trade unions in Kenya.
That we still see today.
Rather ironically, this organization was created to stop and limit trade union and power after independence, because they had become a bit too big, and Kenyatta was like, "No, this is going to be a problem because the workers we need to be able to control the workers.
They need an avenue, but they can't be able to usurp us." Basically.
Yes, and what's really sucks, but it also makes sense because he's a politician, is that when he was on the outside looking in, Mboya was all for trade unions getting political. But now that he's on the inside looking out, he fucking hates it. And he's going to do everything in his power to stop it.
Yeah.
So when general strikes and go-slows threatened Kenya's economic progress, Mboya dealt a tough hand for the working class. Quoting now from Daniel Branch in his book Between Hope and Despair.
Okay.
He says, and I quote, "Kenyatta and Mboya therefore set about nullifying the political power of the trade unions as part of their wider assault on the politics of redistribution. As fears of a general strike gathered pace in August 1965, plans for a consolidated umbrella organization for the unions finally took shape. The following month, the state-organized COTU was established. The organization combined existing labor groups, increased state control of union activity, and prevented the labor movement from becoming a vehicle for the radical political faction, aka Odinga." Like, that's it. That's why they did this.
Their joint enemy.
Yes. But by neutering the trade unions, Mboya shot himself in the foot, because that was his base. That was part of the reason why he was a threat. So in as much as he wanted to curb the power of trade unions, which in so doing would have curbed Odinga's power and influence, he also did it at his own expense, which would come to bite him in the ass. So now, yeesh. It is 1965, and right now it's not too bad. Like, he still has international support, he still has his charisma, he's young, he's hot, he's still the shit. Everything is fine. So he was then appointed to be the economic planning minister. Tell us what he did as economic planning minister, Kariithi.
Sessional paper number 10
Yes.
of 1965. With his partner and Mangu individual, Mwai Kibaki.
Amen. Sessional paper number 10 on African socialism and its application to Kenya is the economic blueprint for this country. Vision 2030 is just a zhuzhed up version of that. That's what it is.
All our work have all come back to sessional paper number 10 of 1965.
So this policy document outlined post-colonial Kenya's path to economic development, arguing that you should grow first and then redistribute later. He also drafted the Treaty on East African Cooperation in 1967, and as he was doing more policy work, he also proved himself to be a valuable political operator.
Yes.
He was instrumental in isolating and eventually excising Odinga from the vice presidency.
Through the little general election of 1966, when he held a KANU election, and I think it was that time where they created 8 regional vice presidents. Basically to completely disarm any remnant of Odinga's power in KANU.
That was him.
And that was everything. Because even, like, there was something I wanted to say before I just let you go, because, you know, when you go, you go.
Thank you.
Before, when he was so, I feel he was so close to Kenyatta in this whole process because of the Odinga situation. To them, both of them, Odinga was the problem. And so Mboya he introduced a motion of confidence in the president.
Yes.
And his government. And it was this is according to Hornsby, in parliament, that also condemned dissident and confused socialist groups. So it's the same thing you said. He plays these games very tightly. So he was sacrificing, my whole point was he was sacrificing his labor unions and all this because his next big step was to try and consolidate Odinga's base.
Yeah.
How do you do that? By getting Odinga out. He didn't succeed, but he tried.
He tried. He really did. These were the good years. Everything was great. Money was flowing. The bottles were popping. The booties were shaking. And Mboya's brilliance and affinity for politics made him a big man in Kanu. Unfortunately, despite all his good works, he was not fully trusted.
No.
They trusted him to get the job done, but they didn't actually trust him to be part of that inner circle.
No, you never trust someone with that ambition.
But unfortunately, his competence also made it increased his threat level to the government. According to the final report from the Truth and Justice Reconciliation Commission, and I quote, Mboya posed a challenge to the existing government and its supporters at 3 levels. First, his following in trade unions and his childhood on a sisal estate on the borders of Machakos and Kiambu enabled him to converse colloquially in Gikuyu and Kikamba, as well as in Swahili and Duluo languages. It meant that he was able to secure support from outside his own ethnically restricted sub-nationality, aka tribe. More than any other politician, Mboya had a Kenya-wide following and national appeal. Secondly, or rather the second, thing that made him a threat to the Kenyan government was that his international reputation and his close relationship with the American labor organizations. The third thing that made him a threat, I don't know, because that's I cut off the quote. You see why editing a document really helps.
Wow.
Sometimes not doing things live is ooh.
Well, but there was Kanu A and there was Kanu B.
We're actually getting there.
Oh, please! I'm going ahead.
We're getting there.
He's such an interesting. Before his assassination, he was so interesting.
He got so much done.
He got so much done, but also he was just a political genius.
Machiavelli.
That guy, he made
Machiavelli.
Moves, and by being that's I think that's why I really connected him to yes, and please don't make that the TikTok.
I mean, it's already in my notes
don't
here.
do it.
I need something that's gonna blow up. Maybe we can tag him.
Gonna get me attacked.
Not attacked. Man, you could get a job out of this.
Hey,
you never know.
hey.
You never back yourself.
Anyways, my point was that was the nationalist part. Like he really was trying to be. Every Kenyan has sort of dreamt about this non-politically, tribal leader that will become the president of Kenya.
Yes.
Never has it ever happened.
It's interesting how the two people, everyone that's gotten close, wound up dead.
It's just dumb.
Tom, Jem Kariuki.
You don't count JM.
George Saitoti could have, but
Saitoti was that is other things. Saitoti was a scary person to many people, and then it's because they believed he had the money. He didn't have the populism, but he had the money that could have gotten him to the presidency. But Tom Mboya, had he become the president, maybe we'd be talking about a much less ethnic country today. I don't know if it would have happened, but because I think for him to have become president, he would have had to become more Luo.
Yeah.
But that's what he was trying to be. He was trying to be that leader who I have a touch. I'm thinking of Ruto times 10. Like I can come to your Kikuyu land and sing a Kikuyu hymn with you. That's what Ruto would do. Then go to my Luo homeland and speak completely in Luo. Then go to the Ukambani, another big base, and speak completely in Kamba.
Their language, yeah.
And then speak fluent Kiswahili, and then look like a real leader abroad. Like, wow, like he's the one we look up to, but he just ended up being a martyr.
It sounds like you have a bit of a crush on our boy TJ.
I don't know. He's not my political hero from the Kenyan history.
Who is it?
I don't know, actually.
Interesting.
They're all like I take pieces from people. I really like Makan Singh, like I told you, mainly because he was not Kenyan, but he really came with that. I find many of them very interesting. Mwai Kibaki is, of course, big player. Kenneth Matiba, of course. GK Kariithi, please.
Your namesake.
Man, that's my hero. And others, there are many, but why, people call me someone who sometimes leans with the state, and so sometimes I'm not always for these ideas that the state murdered all these people. You convinced me with JM. I was
JM
not
was a
for
shit
JM.
show.
You convinced me.
Yeah, JM was a shit
Convinced
show.
me because he never to me sounded big enough to kill.
And then
Stupidity ran through. Remember the story you ran from me. Clearly, it was stupidity that came through.
Yeah.
It was ego that was hit.
Yes.
It was not about his ambition. Tom Mboya, I don't necessarily believe we know the full story. And I don't think we ever will.
I don't
because
think we ever will.
we all have been told to look at one party. We've been told to look at Jomo Kenyatta and his cronies.
Yes.
But something our boss would always teach us is the
Xbox.
question of our Xbox. Whew.
Not
Not
Xbox.
Xbox. Would always say the Latin phrase "cui bono." And you ask yourself, when you ask yourself that question, you realize it's not one party that you count in this. You have to break it up into three. You break it up into Jomo Kenyatta and his cronies. That's group one. Group two is Jaramogi Odinga and his threat. He's just been thrown out of government. Tom Mboya is doing everything to usurp me. That's question. And point number three is the giraffe that sees very far.
Moi.
Daniel Toroitich Arap Moi. Because the Kanu A and Kanu, when you get there, we'll get there.
Okay, so what a wonderful segue. So to understand the split between Kanu, we kind of need to remember that Kenyatta is a very, very, very old man.
From like 1965, they were like, this guy's dying.
They all knew this man is about to die.
So they were aligning.
It's a question of how do I make sure I'm good when he dies?
Imagine he lasted 15 years.
I can't.
Everyone was like, he's dying
everyone
now.
was holding their
He
breath.
suffered several strokes.
To be honest,
Huh?
I'm surprised he fathered children. Let's just leave it at that.
Men are blessed.
We're not gonna get into this. I lack the knowledge to actually get
Men
into this
are
properly.
blessed.
Is it blessed though? Can you imagine being 80 and then all of a sudden, like being like Jay in Modern Family, you're retiring.
I'm rich.
And then all of a sudden you have a kid.
Like your fathering is more like being a grandfather. I honestly think that was more his fathering style. Like his kids are brought to him once a day. He talks to them. And they go do their own thing. It's Mama Nationhood now, the one who's really mothering and doing the work. You can't do the leg work at 80. So, the leg work you're doing there.
So in the late 60s, Kenyatta, because of his age and other health issues, suffered many strokes.
Several. Over several years.
It was bad. Like it broke Kanu in half with two parties or factions forming around the question of its succession.
Yes.
You have Kanu A, which was the Kiambu elite, and these guys were backing Moi. Then you have Kanu B, which is made up of Mboya and all the other ethnic minorities, and they were backing Mboya. Now, after Kenyatta's stroke, Jonjo and Moi moved to prevent Mboya from ascending to the presidency.
Yep.
And Jonjo proposed a constitutional amendment that raised the minimum age of presidential candidates from 35 to 40. Do you want to guess how old Mboya was?
37.
He was 39.
Yeah.
They were literally like, nah, not you.
So he did that in 69?
Because
if it was 39, that was 69. That's the year Mboya died.
No. Okay, I was 37 then. It was 37. He was 37. Okay, we have made an executive decision that was made off mic because I got plans. I'm a busy bitch.
Why am I not allowed to say that phrase to you?
Because, men, the patriarchy, the demonization of the word bitch. It's called reclaiming my power.
I'm telling you, the word that every man is tired of hearing is the phrase, the patriarchy.
But it's the truth. The patriarchy is everywhere. Like, honestly, on a good day, a woman can make the patriarchy work for her on a good day. And that's like when you pretend to be all helpless because you really don't want to change your car tire yourself.
I'm really not going to get into this fight, but I invite Chris M.
No!
And others to represent the male population and fight this, because I am someone who's really tried to abide with my ladies in this struggle. However, let me tell you, the phrase, the patriarchy, gets me so frustrated.
But the patriarchy oppresses you too.
No.
It does. That's what toxic masculinity is.
The world oppresses me. The world is nonsense. And that is my opinion. All human beings are terrible. But anyways, you had said you want to speed through this thing. You have somewhere to go. Okay. You're a BB.
I'm a busy bitch. And So we've made the executive decision off mic that we're gonna cut it off here, and then we're gonna come back and we're gonna speed through the assassination because let's be honest, a majority of this episode is just us doing banter.
When you come and visit me, you know you're just coming for the banter.
So, wait, I mean, this is why we love having you on, Kariithi.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Makes me blush.
So yeah, thank you so much for coming. We're gonna pretend that we're gonna go, but really we're just gonna sit here and wait for a bit. So thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it.
As a designer, I am so proud and happy to have been here.
Oh my god.
Ndio mono na tumeshukuru.
Okay, bye. Much for listening to the Utajuo Hujui podcast. I really appreciate you giving me your time of day. I know that your time is very valuable. If you'd like to connect with me, you can find me on Instagram at utajuahujui.pod. That is at UTAJUAHUJUI.pod on Instagram. Please don't forget to like, share, review, do all the nice things. I could really use the boost. Okay, enjoy the rest of your time on this planet. Goodbye.